Now let's do the implementation of these commands. When we sign up, it should be able to also submit this data into our database. So we are going into the sign up section to actually submit this form. This function event we can fire on the form element, and that is called on submit. Okay, so this on submit will be calling a JavaScript function, and so we have to create a JavaScript function here at the top here, okay, in between the sign up and the return, and say const handle submit. Okay, we are submitting a form, and so we'll do this. Now the forms have default behaviors, especially the HTML forms. They reload anytime you perform a submit. So we'll capture the event of the form, and then we'll call the prevent default behavior of the form, so that the form does not reload anytime we submit. Then at this place we'll call the function and pass the event in there, so that the handle submit can also pass that event. That event is what we'll capture and then prevent its default behavior. Then below that, so we are capturing the form event. Now I can do console.log and check you submitted me. Okay, so let's see if we click on this button, this function will be executed. So we'll press F12, go into the console. This is the console. So when we hit on that submit button, you see it's logged that test in there. So it means that this function is working properly. Everything is fine from this angle. The next thing we need is to capture or retrieve the data content of this inputs we have created here, because so far nothing is actually being captured. Even if you type something here, React is not able to track or collect this data and then store this data for processing. So we need what we call the React a React hook called state, useState. Okay, that is the React hooks we talked about. I showed you earlier that we need to actually call these states useState, and that is what is going to do. It's part of the React package that lets you add a state variable to your component. So we will go to the sign up, and then before the handle submit, we want to create some states here. So const, it says the const, and then in here we want to use that to handle the first part, which is username. So we'll say username, and then we'll say set username. Okay, that is how it is defined. Then you say equal to the useState. Now we have not imported a useState on this project, so we have to import that. Okay, it imports it, then you pass a parenthesis, a function, and then you pass the empty string inside, so that it will initialize the fields. This box, anytime it reloads, it will initialize it with nothing will be inside it. Then we have to also create we have to also create another one for email. So email, then you say set email, and then that is going to be equal to useState, and then pass an empty string. Then also const, and then password, set password, and then that is going to be equal to useState of an empty string. Then we also have const confirm password. You see, two different words, so I set it to be a camel case, and then now the sets will start with a lowercase, confirm will be a capital case, and password will also be capital. and that is also going to be equal to useState and then an empty string. So that handles our various use states for all these fields. Okay, we don't need one for input, the button. So now we have to assign that to this particular input. The first one will have a value. Okay, for username, the value is going to be the username we have set as the state here, this one. And then to change any value inside that field, that input box, you have to have a set you have to get your onChange. Okay, so anytime the field is changed, we need to capture the event of that text box and then submit it to set username, and the event would capture the target.value. Okay, there is this property inside it that stores the things you type inside the boxes, and that is going to be the event.isTarget.value. Okay, so this will settle the score of actually retrieving content from this field, and then also setting new values to the state so that that would be persisted in the field. The next one we want to do is going to be for email. So we'll come down here and the value is going to be equal to the email. Okay, then the onChange, when the field changes, we also want to do the event of set email, and that is going to be e.target.the-value. The next one is going to be for the password. So we do that, we say value equals password, and then the onChange is going to be the event of that. Then you say set password, and then you pass the target e.target.value. Then we do the same thing for this part, the confirm password. So we have the value is going to be this, which is confirm password, and then the onChange is going to be the event equals set confirm password, which would pass the e.target.value. So this gives us the data we are working with. Okay, so it means anytime we click, we type things inside these fields, and then we can also set the fields to be required. So at this place where you have the inputs, you can say before the values, you can say it doesn't matter where you put it, but then it says that required. You can just say set required. It's a boolean, so you say required. By default it is true, so you set the required fields for that. The password required, so these are just attributes you are passing in, required. Okay, so it will enforce the user to put in the data before it allows you to submit. Then when you come to the submission of the form, we want to create an object of this particular data we are collecting. But first of all, we want to check if the passwords match. before we can submit. Other than that, the user will type a different password here, and then thinking they are also confirming with the same password. So first of all, we have to say if the password we have captured in this box is the same as the confirm password field, then it means the person has provided the right credentials. Then it should go through and do this. And then the first thing we want to do is to create a const equals new user object. Const new user object, it should be equal to an object, right? Then we start capturing the data in the form of an object. So we say the user, this is how it's going to store it in the database, right? It will name it as user. Then we are passing the username state we have created here to it. Then comma email, for email we are also passing our email. It doesn't mean it can't be the same, okay? In fact, we can actually make sure they are all the same. So when I say username, this is how it's going to be stored. And if the key is the same as the value, there's no need even putting all that. So we can capture them as this way. So email, then password, okay? So this is how we will capture it. So it will pick this, it will pick that, it will pick that, and then it's going to be key value pairs, but then it will use the same name as the key, it will use the same name as the value to store the value. So when we do it like this, it's going to process. Now let us console log the object and see. So console.log the new user object. We want to see what we are capturing as a user object. So when I do this and say this is going to be James at mail, that is the name, and I will say James at mail.com. The user is going to be ASDF, and then I sign up. You can see it is logged that content in our console, so it means that that part is working fine. So we can now simply come here and then push this data into our database. How do we go about that? So we'll say fetch, and then don't forget we created a data here which is JSON file, but it is empty, and the endpoint is this. So we have to actually come into our terminal, split our terminal into two, and then do json-server -p for port, which will do the port as 4000 here, -w to watch, and that W is going to watch the data folder, because we are already in the profile folder, and when you check this is a profile folder. So the next immediate folder is the data folder before the file. So that, and then user.json. So when we hit enter, this is going to launch this endpoint. You can see, and it's picked the user's endpoint. So we'll copy that, and then we'll come here in the sign up. That's what we are going to put in the fetch here. So it's going to be here, and then because we are going to submit this data, we have to also define the method. Okay, so the method is going to be post, and then how is the content going to be like? We say the content is of type application /JSON. You can also sometimes do */JSON or */ which means it will match any type of content type. But since we know the content type, we'll say it's going to be application /JSON. That's how we're going to submit it. And then the data itself we are going to submit is going to go through the body key. Okay, So in order to, we have it in the form of an object, but we can't pass the object directly into a JSON file. So